What's up, everyone? We have a great episode for you today. We have Tim Blake on the show. He's the founder of the Emerald Cup. That's the premier weed festival here in California. It just went down in Oakland about a couple weeks ago. It was at the Kaiser Center right in Lake Merritt. It was awesome. It was beautiful. We've done a few videos about it already, but now we are stoked to talk to the founder himself. We go into the most recent show. We talk about kind of his take on it. We talk about the future of the Emerald Cup, what's to come next year, and kind of the plans to make it better. And we talk about kind of the history of the cup. And then at the end, we even talk about aliens and all sorts of stuff. It's a journey, guys. So stay strapped in. But first, I want to note real quick, my audio and video setup for this show is a little bit different. So my audio in particular is not as good as I would like it to be. And the video is a different setup than what you're used to. But nonetheless, it's a great episode. I think it's really entertaining. I hope you stay strapped in. Let's go right into the episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are on Cannabis right now. We are so excited. We have a great episode for you today. We have Tim Blake from the Emerald Cup. The Emerald Cup is a legendary festival here in California. It just took place a couple weeks ago in Oakland. JR and I were down there. We had an absolute awesome time, and we are just blessed to have Tim here today. If you're not familiar with the Emerald Cup, watch our couple videos that we put out. We actually did a live stream from the show. We did a stream prior to the show. And then we also have a video where we kind of walked through this most recent show. JR put it together, that video. So just to kind of give you some visuals to what we're talking about. But anyways, welcome to the show, Tim. We're really excited to have you here.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
I got to tell you, I had such a good time, and you guys were so accommodating to setting up our booth. I know that dealing with the construction and everything, things were just like down to the wire for a lot of things, and the way you were able to take care of us and give us the space we needed to really have a really wonderful, excellent, successful time, and I can't thank you enough for that. But we always want to start out our interviews by asking, how did you fall in love with the plant, and how has the plant helped you get to where you are today?
I was a hyperactive kid back then. I probably would have been put on Ritalin, as a teenager. Nothing wrong, just a hyperactive kid, And I was going to Catholic school, and I had an Hispanic kid there, Tony Del Rosa, and he was into cannabis. Of course, seventh grade and whatnot. And he turned me on, thank God for Tony. And we went out and got high a couple times. And I immediately realized that I'd found something that grounded me, centered me, gave me a peaceful feeling to my energy. And I was sold and hooked forever. I mean, that was it. From there on, I was a cannabis guy from seventh grade on. Young, kind of probably not the greatest to tell people, but hey, that's the way it was. I think I was 12 years old or something, 13 years old. And we were just doing it. But I thank God for Tony.
I kind of had a similar experience. I grew up in a home of really pretty intense alcoholics. And so I found cannabis at a very young age, and I found it as almost like a coping mechanism. And my love for cannabis started in the 8th grade as well. So I think that's kind of a gravitating story for a lot of people. I think that, it's common.
No, it is. And I mean, as a parent, I think back and I think, oh, I don't want my 8th grader getting high. But yeah, we all did. We all did that. We grow up quick and everybody gets involved, especially back in the day. And for the most part, I think if you're guiding your kids right, it's okay. I had the same thing, a bunch of alcoholics in my family, a lot of alcoholism back in the day.
Yeah,
and, yeah, and the cannabis was just a joy to replace that with, because I tried the alcohol as a kid too. My dad he was a lawyer. He got the most work every year for his law firm, so he'd get like a garage full of liquor. And we were going out there in that 7th and 8th grade and hitting teacher scotch whiskey and whatnot. And that was not the same as once I got to cannabis. It was like, okay, this is much better.
And you have to say it was a totally different trajectory for you of what your life would have been.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I am so thankful for cannabis. I can't even imagine where my life would be if I didn't have that and I'd gone the alcohol route.
Hey everyone, just jumping in. I need to give a couple shout outs to our sponsors. Thanks to our sponsors for supporting the show, helping make things possible, like our Emerald Cup appearance, like we were talking about earlier in the episode. So, shout out to our sponsors at NeptuneSeedbank. Go to NeptuneSeedbank.com if you need seeds. They always have great deals. And on NeptuneSeedbank, you can find breeders like Raw Genetics and TikiMadMan. Tiki is one of the sponsors of our show. He paid for our booth at the Emerald Cup in terms of like the skin, the tent thing. Huge help. So thank you to TikiMadMan. He needs your support. So look up Tiki on NeptuneSeedbank and buy his seeds over there. He would really appreciate it, and we would appreciate your support and throwing it over his way. Thanks to Lost Coast Plant Therapy. Look up lostcoastplanttherapy.com or look up Lost Coast Plant Therapy on Amazon and buy some of this really great IPM spray. I've been using it in my garden. Right now, I'm dealing with spider mites and aphids coming through in the garden right here at the end of August, and I don't really want to mess with my plants too much, right? I need something that can take down these bugs without interacting or harming the plants, interacting with them in a bad way, I mean. So Lost Coast Plant Therapy is a really great spray and effective. I spray every few days, and that's going to kill those successive generations of spider mites. It's going to kill any powdery mildew that you have, and it's going to help you treat bud rot and things like that. So check out Lost Coast Plant Therapy. And then lastly, thank you to SacredThreeMushrooms.com. SacredThreeMushrooms, go to their website. There you can buy all sorts of things like grow kits for as low as $80, I believe. You can get a grow kit that's all set up and good to go so you can grow your own mushrooms. And then on there, they have links to buying spores from them as well. So check out SacredThreeMushrooms.com. All right, let's go back to the interview. So we were just talking about, even just before the camera or the recording started, we were talking about this most recent cup, Emerald Cup 2024. It was the first year it moved down to Oakland. It was at the Kaiser Center right there in Lake Merritt. Just a couple blocks from the Lake Merritt BART station. So it was really convenient to get to, and parking and things like that. And like I said at the top there, JR and I had a great time, but I would love to hear from your perspective. What are your kind of thoughts a couple weeks post show, thoughts on how it went this year, and maybe some highlights from you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think as a producer, I'm always coming from that standpoint. So it's a lot of critical post-production analysis and whatnot. For us, we went in really concerned because a lot of our community was worried about Oakland, and we talked about the crime and what was going on. That was not the issue that happened. People had a very peaceful weekend. We had great security. So we were very happy with the synergy between Oakland and our community coming in. Vendors did really well for a small show, first-time show. Our vendors were really happy. I had one vendor said they did better than they did at Champs. That was incredible. So that was a good thing too. The award ceremony went off beautifully. We melted all of our slides a few hours before the show and lost 7 hours worth of work and had to do the slides on the fly during the award ceremony. So we started 45 minutes late, and it was a challenging. I'll turn this off. I'm sorry. And
That's
it was
awesome
a challenging aspect. It was a very challenging aspect to the show to work with. But you know what? We did it. We're pros, and nobody really even noticed it. We ran right through there. We were doing slides on the fly. And so I'm really proud of the way that awards ceremony came through. And the energy was good. What I'm looking for in a show, well, the energy feels. You're bringing a community together with another community. You're all coming together. You don't know each other. And yet if you look through the crowd, especially on Saturday, everybody mingled peacefully. There was like no problems, no interaction. Everybody was being nice, and it was like it was all one community. So it was really. I was
one thing I want to say, Tim, and I was speaking to someone not even 4 hours ago, is that I felt like the community that was in that Emerald Cup is like a blueprint for the future of how communities should be. We had a multicultural community. We had people from every kind of economic background, but everyone was there to vibe, have a good time, help each other out. I mean, I had a buddy who was standing in line. He was second in line for Purple City Genetics, and he realized that he didn't have cash on him and it was a cash only thing. And the guy in front of him said, "Hey, bro, I got you, no problem. Get what you need. We'll walk over to the ATM and we'll get you taken care of." And so that was kind of the vibe that I felt all the way around. And I got to say, I feel like that is like a utopian society that is a blueprint for the way people can do things.
You know, we've always prided ourselves in having that energy in Santa Rosa at the Emerald Cup, and we weren't sure how it would work and convey into a transfer to Oakland. But you got it. It did. It did do that. Everybody talked about it. We had more diversity and more people of color than we've ever had for a show. We invited all the local people, the elders, the Tokeland seniors. We had the seniors. We had the people that were in need. We had, it was just an amazing mix, and everybody was cool. So it leads to a good shot at doing a show next year that would really be what we want to do, which would be expand into the parking lot, take the rest of the building over, because there's 3 other rooms in there that you can do parties in. So there's a lot of room in that Kaiser to expand.
That's awesome. Yeah, it was really cool. I live in the Bay Area. I'm up in Vallejo, and so it was really cool for me to just see more of the Bay Area people, folks from Oakland. Like you brought in, we were right next to CBCB. And for folks that aren't from the area that don't know, CBCB is a woman-owned dispensary in Oakland, an OG in the scene. They've been around for a long time. And it was really cool that they were there. And it seemed like folks that knew them from the local area were there. And it got me really excited about the future, because leading into this show, JR and I were talking about how I was hoping that more folks would realize that they could just hop on BART from San Francisco and get to this really great weed festival in like 35 minutes or whatever it is. It's just a much more accessible show than it was in prior years. And I'm excited that the potential that creates.
I love Santa Rosa, but there's a general feeling in business that 45 miles is your radius, and 45 miles doesn't make it to Oakland and San Francisco, and they don't come up. So we were dealing with the hometown crowd. Our vendors, our sponsors, our entrants need that consumer base from the Bay Area. This was a test run, and even though it wasn't a huge show, it was a solid show, and it really leads to us being able to do something really good in the future. We invited the Lotus Church, the Hyphy Cup, all the mushroom churches in. We had Dave from the big church in San Francisco and Oakland. We had everybody coming in. Andre Special, we invited the Tokeland seniors. We invited everybody in the Oakland community in so that they would be welcome. And I've always felt that's really critical. You can't go into someplace. We invited all the clubs. We decided with all the challenges, why not just invite all the clubs in? The Sideshow, the East Bay Dragons, the Lowriders, the Hells Angels. And we did. We offered 25 tickets to each of the clubs. We had many members there. And it was like, we all love cannabis. Let's come together and all celebrate cannabis together. And, it was an incredible thing. We had the head of the Oakland Bay Area Hells Angels and really the official international head Flash on our stage, giving Dan Rush an award for social justice. And it was an honor to have the local legend Flash on our stage with us. It was like just some really amazing moments.
Yeah, it was really incredible. And one of the things I also wanted to commend you guys on was picking the appropriate size venue for the crowd. I thought you guys did a really good job of that, to where the crowd really felt like it was a move, it was hopping, it was happening, there was things going on, so much to see. And I feel like you guys did a really good job of kind of planning that part out.
Well, we actually had originally envisioned taking over the whole parking lot and add another 40 vendors in there. And really, it was a tough year because people were really trepidatious about coming into Oakland. People thought they'd never get out. They'd get robbed. The vendors wouldn't make it. People were going to get, gunpoint. And we couldn't really fight that other than really show people. Let's go in there. Let's do this. Let's show people how it is. So we made this footprint smaller than it was going to be. And then we'll go next year and take over the whole parking lot and the other rooms, because I'm an old show guy, and you got to have a show that feels comfortable so it doesn't feel big and empty.
Yeah, word.
Yeah.
Well, you hit the next question that I was going to ask you, which was like asking you for teases about the future. I think you just hit it there. So I'll throw it over to JR for your next question.
Yeah, one thing I noticed different about this event this year is that some of the regional breeders and some of the other outside the state folks that would normally come in to vend and breed, or I mean to sell, weren't as present as in the past. Do you think
Mhm.
that is more has to do with the fact that it's such a licensed event, and so you got to deal with the city about everything? I mean, it's a totally different thing than just throwing a party up in, the woods. You know what I mean?
It's challenging. I have advocated for legalization since the Emerald Cup started, and I really believe it's the right thing to do, even though they've really tortured our local community and culture in California. You see it going across the country and the world. It's all good. It's hard to do legal shows. I mean, a friend of mine called me up and said, "Gosh, I apologize because he's going to the trap shows all the time in LA." And he said, "I make 10 or 15 grand. It's easy. We just roll in." And I said, I don't blame you. I started out as a trap show. And really, I'm doing this because we need to do it legally. But as far as all sides of it, I'm like, okay, whatever people can do. I think part of it hurt with us with the genetics because we were doing a show in August. And so a lot of the people were like, genetics aren't bumping big in August unless you're Humboldt, Humboldt seeds. And so that was part of what happened there, I think. And I think because we actually, postponed the show. We were going to do it in April and May. And then because we hit such a hard time with our contestants, they couldn't even afford to enter. We ended up cutting the fee down in half, backing it up for 3 weeks and realizing, wow, our industry is in trouble. And so because of that, and then the Kaiser wasn't really ready, it was like, wow, we got to postpone this. The Kaiser's not ready. And so we backed it up into August. But August is a tough time. You've got the state fair in front of us. You got Hall of Flowers behind us. You got Outside Lands right in there. You got Northern Nights and Reggae in the River up here in front of us that are both cannabis shows. I mean, it's incredible. It wasn't really fair for us to do that to them because there's too many cannabis shows in the course of a 5-week period. We didn't have any choice. We're going to move back to April and May because those, Hall of Flowers and Northern Nights and the State Fair, they've got those dates. And really for us, for the flower to be fresh, for us to be really pertinent, we need to do the contest over the winter and then do the event in April and May.
Yeah. And I can see like getting your judging kits out earlier, way earlier than the actual event for award and stuff like that. That makes a lot of sense.
Well, that was nice to have so much time. It's really hard when you get the entries finished by mid-March or February, and then all of a sudden you only have 6 weeks to judge, and then you have a show. That's a very schedule to ram in there and get. I mean, it was nice having the extra time, but for the sake of all the genetic companies coming in and all the brands and the freshness of the cannabis and the timing and whatnot, and for winners to be, when you do the Academy Awards, you do it in February or March so that people can, be pertinent. You don't do it in the summer. I mean, I love the state fair, but it's tough to be doing a state fair competition for cannabis in July when cannabis is a year old.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we move into the next segment of the show where we're going to kind of walk through the history of the cup, I just wanted to comment on, so JR and we were there for a bit of the awards show and we saw your speech. And I got to say, you got me a little misty-eyed, a little emotional because your sincerity really came through. And I really felt how much you care about this community and how much you put into this and how it's not BS, basically. You're not just a dude putting on a weed festival, to put on a weed festival. This is a part of a mission of yours. And I wanted to thank you. You reminded me of that earlier when you were talking about kind of how you've always been pushing for this. And I just wanted to, thank you. And I really enjoyed your speech that you gave during the awards show.
Well, thank you. You know what? That was another one of those things. We usually do a run through. I usually get to practice because this was so bootstrapped. I loaded the trucks on Thursday night, went to bed, got 5 hours sleep, watered my gardens, and then drove down and we unloaded all day Friday. And then Saturday we loaded in. It was crazy. And we never had a chance. I never had a chance to practice a speech. I never had a chance to do the run through. I walked out on that stage and was like hit by that applause and just was like, oh my God, I gotta spit this out and get this down. And so that was one of my first really pure, I usually practice. And that was like, I just winged it and said, okay, I'm just going to say what comes to me. And and I'm glad it was well received.
It was really well received, and I love that everyone gave you a standing ovation when you hit the stage as well. I thought that was great. I think one of the things we talked about on pre-show before the event was the fact that the Emerald Cup has been kind of the premier event and the premier competition, not just for California, but the West Coast, because I'm from Portland, Oregon area, and I know I see a lot of dudes walking the show that were from Seattle and the Washington area, and all the way down to San Diego. And so the show itself has been kind of like a mecca for genetics as well. I mean, I know that like Purple City Genetics, just for instance, their line is out the door, and those guys in our industry are kind of like the rock stars, the breeders and the guys who got the cuts. Those are kind of the rock stars of our industry. So what are you kind of doing to kind of want to bring those guys into the table so that they can do commerce as well?
Well, it's all about, like I said, moving the show back into the spring and getting that done a lot earlier. The genetics have always been a critical aspect to us. We've been talking about it since we started. And Humboldt and Northern California have the best genetics in the world. Of course, now that's expanded the state with Purple and everybody else. But we really have the best genetics in the world. People come from all over the world to get those. And we really want to make a concentrated effort to have more of those people there. You know what? When we backed the show up, we almost had to shut the show down. And so we shut down vending for 3 weeks, and then we put it back together. And it's like, I don't think a show has ever been shut down for 3 weeks and then put back. So a lot of the vendors were like, and we were just all in shock pulling this off. This was the wildest show I've ever done. And I'm really, really, it was. My daughter was in the booth for 10 hours running the box. Yeah. I was running up and down the streets. I was running through VIP. I mean, we've never done such a bootstrap show, except for the first ones. And, it worked out really well, but the genetics are really critical, and we'll bring those in heavily next year for sure.
Well, Gina was my contact, and I got to tell you, that girl really worked her ass off, man. She was hustling.
Well, she didn't have the 5 or 6 people to work with her. None of us did. So she was doing like 5 jobs. Yeah. And we really busted it and pulled it together. Gene, my whole team, just amazing. Taylor, Vicky, all of them. And
shout out the team. Yeah, shout out the team.
Well, we had Taylor and Vicky and Gina. We had Reba and Michaela. Just incredible. But we had some people, Nikki and Swami, when they realized we would never be able to get down to my place from their place and get the trucks loaded, they loaded their trailer up and drove it to Oakland after coming down to my place with the whole load first. That's what they did the night, and they drove down. I had 2 people come in from LA, Chuck, who won the CBD contest years ago. They worked 2 straight days for free, never stopped. I had Todd McCormick. He goes, I'm going to send you this guy, Big Mike, and he's going to save you. I said, don't worry about it. Big Mike ran my VIP for 2 days for nothing. Just stayed there. Yeah. And it's like, I can't thank these people enough. We had an unbelievable volunteer crew that came in and stepped up and did the work of 100 people with like 12 of us.
Yeah, that's incredible. That is amazing.
Well, let's talk. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to go back to what you said about the future of the Cup, because you're talking about where we're going to go. We want to stay in California, but we have people who'd like to take us to New York, Vegas, and Europe. And really, the Emerald Cup could just take, like my partner said, a capsule of Area 101 in the Emerald Cup, take 500 of our community and just go to any of those places and just set up and be the Emerald Cup and have it come in. So we're really looking at some great opportunities in the next couple of years to roll out.
Yeah, I remember you started to experiment with that in like 2019, right? And then like the pandemic obviously threw the whole world on its ass, basically. But yeah, could you talk about that? Because I guess I feel like the community's concerns were basically, how do you do that while still preserving like whatever the Emerald Cup is still there, even though it's not in California or whatever. And I know that part of that, I think, was even bringing some of the people from like Nikki and Swami to some of those events. Yeah. I guess do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, you just take Johnny Casali and Jason Gelman, and you take Craig Satori, you take Nikki and Swami, you load us all up in a big bus, or a plane. You take, a couple hundred of us out there, and you've got the culture there, and all of the rest of them will come. So we're very excited about that. And I really see that going on. That thing, we were really set. We went to Product Earth in England, like in 2018, I think. We were already set to go to Europe then. And then we were one city public meeting away in Long Beach from going to the Queen Mary in Long Beach in 2018 also. When COVID hit, we were going to go to LA and do 50,000 people at the Queen Mary. And then we were going to England, and we were on our way. I mean, it really threw us for a loop. COVID and legalization just wollywomped us. And, we bounced around. We got back to LA with Woody that one year, and we came back up to the Craneway, and now we got to the Kaiser. But it's been quite a journey.
It has been a journey, and it's amazing that you guys have been able to pivot and navigate. And I think that's something that is a testament to the successful cannabis grower and the person who's successful just in the community and industry as a whole is your ability to pivot. Because if you think you're going to do this one thing for fucking very long, you're sadly mistaken, bro. It changes fast and constantly.
That's so true. The only people that have made it in my life, I told him I did 30 years in the business before the Emerald Cup, so I've seen it all. And it's all about pivots. It's pivoting to sun grown. It's pivoting to indoor when they wipe that out. It's pivoting over to here. It's pivoting to mixed light when that came in. We just pivoted. Circled. Yeah. I mean, I look at all this. It's incredible to look at hot knives starting out. And, we didn't even know what terpenes were. I mean, the evolution of this business is just nothing but change and pivoting. And for us to go after that Long Beach debacle, for us to get down to LA when Green Street fell down and get that down there at that, theater that we got with Woody, and then to come back and pivot again and get the Craneway, and then to lose that and pivot to Kaiser. I never imagined doing 3 different shows in 3 different places without any continuity, bootstrapped, without any money for a year and a half. We did 3 of those in a year and a half. I mean, wow. It's incredible.
Yeah, that's right. The Craneway, for those don't know, that was in Richmond, right? That you guys did. Right. Am I correct there? Yeah. Well, cool. So we're going to kind of try to quickly walk through some of the eras of the Emerald Cup, if you will. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about, because, the reason why we wanted to talk about that, just to kind of give people an idea of where you've come from and kind of what's gone into this show and kind of marking this 20-year anniversary milestone that you guys just hit. So yeah, talk about how did this thing come together in the first place? Like how did the Emerald Cup come to be 20 years ago?
I'm older. I went to all the county fairs growing up and the state fairs. That was a big thing. We didn't have video. We didn't have YouTube or anything. So you took your kids to the county fairs, and I really enjoyed, the sights and the sounds and the competitions and the energy. And we just wanted to do something like that with cannabis. And a bunch of us got together, a friend of mine, Lisa Austin, and I, and we just decided to go for it. I mean, looking back, it was crazy. I mean, High Times didn't come in for another 7 years. Nothing was legal. We just went for it. Now, we didn't put a poster out. We didn't tell anybody. It was all street. But most people still thought we'd be busted. And most people showed up in mass and weren't even identifying themselves. The first and third place winners didn't show up. And you know what? It was a couple hundred people, and we just did it. And it was pure rebellion. And I look back and think, I don't even know how we even conceived and thought we could do that crazy shit. But we did it. The next year, we put a little sign out, a little poster that we put on the big ranches and stuff, nowhere else, just so people could know. But if you look from the first year to the second year, look at that poster, we went from a couple hundred people to 700 people, all these things going on, all these different, it was just incredible what took place the second year, how big we started. We weren't going to do any concentrates or genetics because back then it was a 20-year prison sentence. So we were just sticking to flower. I figured if I was going to get busted, I'd just go to prison for flower. But the second year I turned around and we had people hiding in the corner, all my bros, doing something shady looking. And I went over there and they were running the first illegal hash contest. Concentrates weren't even created yet, but they were running an illegal. Rob Brunette, give him some crap here. I looked around, and Rob was looking up at me sheepishly, and I'm like, "You guys, you're anarchy within anarchy. You guys are going to put me in prison."
Right.
I walked away. I just said, "I can't do anything about it." And my MC Marv, Ringo Lawrence, who was the creator of the first CBD strains, a heroic person in Humboldt, Southern Humboldt Collective, and he showed up to sell genetics, and of course genetics for 20 years, and so Marv ran him off, and I didn't get a chance to apologize, and Ringo was so mad at me. I called him up and made peace, and the next year we let him come back and sell genetics, even though that was illegal. So there were some beautiful things that happened those first couple of years, and that first year, the winter didn't show up, and the next day, this fuel driver of mine shows up and he goes, "I heard their Purple Kush won." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "That was my dad's. I gave it to him. He's never grown pot. He's 86 years old, but he grew it for me." And I said, "Well, gosh, that's amazing." I went to give him the prize, and he said, "My dad said he's old and they're going to go. You should keep it." So we still have the first place cup from the first year at Area 101. I was going to bring it to Oakland, but I just was afraid we'd break it or something had happened. So, or somebody steal it because it was easy. So, because it's really a memento. So we still have the first place winner. And it's a beautiful ceramic piece. I was getting ready for the show and somebody had said, "Oh, what's the cup going to be?" And I said, "It's going to be a ceramic piece." And I started getting visions of a coffee cup, or a mug. And if you see it, it's a beautiful, beautiful ceramic handmade piece of a cup with a cannabis in it, hand painted. It's stunning.
That's cool. That's really cool. So a lot of people think that, everything up there for you guys was all peace, love, and granola, but kind of give people an idea of the pressure of some of the law enforcement in the community at that time.
Well, like I said, I go back all the way through. They came in at the 80s and they landed and they took out pretty much the sun grown with the military. You could still do smaller crops, but we all went indoor. That's when people came and showed me the first indoor, and then we all jumped into indoor and came in. Most people don't realize most of that was indoor grown in the Emerald Triangle through the 90s. I mean, the large stuff, because they couldn't get permission to go and do heat seeking over the crops, so they could find the lights. So if you just kept everybody safe and you didn't let anybody snitch on you, you could get by with things pretty well. That went along pretty well until the early 2000s. Then the military and the DEA got permission to bring in heat seeking equipment. And they wiped out the indoor operations in one winter. They took out 3 big crops in Mendocino, and everybody realized it was over. There was no hiding or protecting yourself from those planes. And they didn't allow them into Humboldt for about 5 more years. So Humboldt still got to grow some big commercial crops, while Mendocino had to start doing smaller niche crops. We did an initiative where you could grow 25 plants, and we went outdoors, and then we did the bigger one with 99. So for quite a few years, the Mendocino only had 25% of the entries, but had 75% of the winners. And I attributed that because of the heat we took, where we couldn't really grow large anymore, where Humboldt could still do large commercial grows. So I don't know who did better. We got more winners. They made a lot more money. But, we were taking a lot of heat. They were really coming after us back then, and they were really going after the hash and the genetics. I mean, people were afraid of the genetics. You really didn't see very many genetics out there. You were seeing a lot of clones, but you weren't seeing a lot of genetic development, because if you had too many seeds or too many plants, you were going to prison for 15 years. So it was a sketchy thing. That really changed, about 2007, 2008, and really came in. I remember John Bragados from Skunk Magazine, who owned it. He came in and wanted to meet with all the genetic people, and nobody wanted to meet. Nobody wanted to talk about it, and there weren't that many. And just a few years later, it just blew up. Me and Gene and all of them came out. It just came out.
So it was around 2010-ish, right, that you guys moved to Santa Rosa, right? So it was after a handful of years or so that you had been doing the show that it moved to Santa Rosa. Is that right?
Moved to Santa Rosa a couple years later. 2010 was the year Rolling Stone came in and called us the Academy Awards of the weed industry. We had a couple things that happened. One was there were some things that broke us going back. The first person that broke us was Christina Onestad, who was working for NPR. And she did an article about the Emerald Cup, and they nixed it. They weren't going to put it out. So she did it without approval and got fired. And NPR had put that all over the country, and it blew the Emerald Cup up. And God bless her, because she got fired over that, but she knew.
I'd love to have her on the show. That's sweet.
Oh, yeah. Christina was amazing. And so from that, then National Geographic wanted to come in and do a whole piece on us. And they came in and stayed for a whole night with us and did a whole piece on us. And then Rolling Stone came out because of this press. It got bigger and bigger. And then Rolling Stone came and put us on the cover with Swami and all of us. And we were proclaimed the Academy Awards of the weed industry.
That's so wild. I bet it was just blowing your mind. I mean, because you were basically a weed farmer, and then all of a sudden you're interacting with, I guess you would say, celebrities at some point. I bet that had to be really strange for you.
Well, we were still illegal. So it was like just a bizarre thing. Now, we went in and helped. We got Tom Almond elected our sheriff, and then we created the 9.31 program where you could grow 99 plants with a permit from the sheriff's office. So we were tacitly legal through the county. But as far as the whole state and commercial, I mean, it's really amazing when you think about it. All these dispensaries in California back then were selling all this cannabis and products, but nobody could legally bring it to them. Yeah. So it was like we weren't legal to farm, sell it to them, but we were getting away with it. So it was really a beautiful era in there from like 2008, 2016, because it was a sweet spot where people weren't paying any of these taxes. There was no 280E. Everybody was getting away with it. We were all making bank, and it was just sweet. And
we had it. I'm from Oregon. I'm in the Portland, Oregon area, and those backpack days. It was a lot better because you had kind of the protection of some form of legality, but yet you were able to move and flex and grow. And I think that's one of the things we kind of brought up about Oakland that I thought was good, is that Oakland community has been a safe haven for cannabis folks who want to flex, grow, and build their brands. And I think moving it down to Oakland, it made a lot of sense because a lot of what happened in the mountains ended up down in the Bay. Genetics, product, all of that. And so I think that was really a smart move on your behalf.
You know what? Our motto this year was "Your legacy is our legacy." And I've said it to many people. We are half the legacy up in the triangle and around the state. The other half of that legacy are all those dealers on the streets throughout California and the rest of the country. You know, all those backpackers and all those, it's our legacy together. We would have never had that legacy without all of them. You got Phil Stevenson down there, a black dude from Oakland, had the first black dispensary in California right out of Oakland. You got Harborside that came in there and fought the feds all those years. You got Oaksterdam and Richard Lee that was raided. You know, you got our guy Dan Rush who went to prison, tried to unionize everybody. That was all Oakland. Oakland was a power spot. And hats off to them for what they did and all the beatings they took and standing there with it. And it felt appropriate to go into Oakland to honor all that and to honor the legacy of all the people in town.
Yeah, one of my buddies at the booth, Soup the Gardener, he was a student at Oaksterdam when the feds raid. He had the M16 pointed to his face. And he was a young kid who was very, very sick. And he was learning how to heal himself. And so that traumatically impacted his activism for cannabis and activism as a whole. And I think Oakland has been a mecca for activism, and the fight is far from over, folks. And so we need to honor these shows and these folks and this community, and we need to kind of start getting more momentum amongst the people, because a lot of people in the area all over the United States are enjoying some of the freedoms of cannabis, but there's a lot of other folks who are not. And there's a lot of other folks who are still sitting in prison. And until we clean up all that fucking mess, we still got a lot of work to do.
Oh, yeah. I'm not going to retire or stand down at all until the prisoners are all freed. I did a couple of short stints. I got people that did a long time. You know, you got these poor people. We've always honored them. You know, Dan, Eric McCauley. Eric McCauley a couple of years ago, that poor kid left the Emerald Cup with 100 pounds, went to Missouri with two guys, got busted. It was their pot. He wouldn't talk, so they rolled on him. He got 23 years. 22-year-old kid, and he did 14 years. I mean, this stuff's got to stop. That insanity there, the abuse on people. And that's what you got to do. You got to bring it into the mainstream. I mean, I'd love to bring it back to the Emerald Triangle, but we have to go into the mainstream, attack it right there. We had the city of Oakland talking about how good it was. The cops, I don't know if you guys people have talked about the Oakland PD there that was so cool all weekend. They were like really nice to everybody. They were not banging on people or hassling anyone. And it's like, that's what we need. We need to normalize it, and we need to have cops be okay with it and moms be okay with it. Look, I got into legalization. My uncle was the oldest reigning Catholic priest in the Bay Area. I mean, like over 50 years. And he got Parkinson's. And I went to all my cop uncles and said, if you let me give him these cartridges, it's not smoking, it'll help him with his Parkinson. And they finally relented, and it did so well, but he was a little depressed. And I said, if you let me give him this, I was giving him CBD for the Parkinson. If you let me give him this cartridge, he'll be happier. And then my uncles came back and they said, 3 days until he died, he was holding on to that cartridge. He wouldn't let that thing go until he lost consciousness, because it was his joy. And to see a Catholic priest get that much relief and joy, he said, we missed something. Me as a cop, I saw it firsthand with my brother. And so I look at those stories and I'm like, that's what we need. We need to get people off pharmaceuticals, have them on cannabis, get this thing cleaned up. We got to get the rest of the states cleaned up. We got to end this charade, get rid of 280E, let everybody open up, get direct markets so that all these small farmers can be okay. We can fix this if we just do a few simple things.
And not only can we fix it, but we can start building our own communities again. One of the things that we talk about on here, and you can maybe speak to this a little bit, is our frustration with the industry being kind of bought out by a few folks. A big part of our community needs to stay local. We grow local. We buy local to that community. We go to the restaurants. We go to the grocery store. If we've got companies coming in on our land, growing a ton of weed, all that weed and revenue goes somewhere else. And then our communities really don't get nothing but shitty jobs.
You know what? I've been a conspiracy guy with ETs since the 70s. And I've been telling people they did more in 6-7 years of legalization to destroy our culture and way of life than they did in 60 years chasing us as outlaws.
Yep.
With 280E, everything. I said on the stage, we had 10,000 brands, 12,000, but 10 to 12,000 brands and farmers. Okay. 90% of them are gone. The other 10% are on the ropes. And there's not one of those brands that's a multi-million-dollar or a $50 million company. Now, in the wine industry, tech industry, video industry, I don't care what industry started. The people that founded it were all worth $50 to $500 million. There's name one company, one out of 10,000 that's worth that money. Now, that's not possible. That's a crime against humanity. That's a crime against our culture. I mean, they destroyed us, and we have to open that up, but we can take that back. They're going to do 280E now. And that's 280 is the tax code where you can't deduct it.
Federal tax code, correct.
So they want to get rid of that now. Well, Ed Schultz from REI, who was head of REI, he took over Harborside and State House. He said there isn't a company in mainstream business that could make a dime with 280E. And he said he didn't ever understand it. And when he got into Harborside, he said, this is impossible. I have another big company that said, if you got rid of 280E, it made the difference between us losing 20 million or making 20 million. A $40 million difference. Okay, so they're going to all go for 280E, but that's still going to keep it illegal. I look at it like I'm done with that. I'm back with Jack. This has got to be descheduled, the end of the feds, the end of the DEA. It's going to become like everything else. We're going to go to farmers markets and bring our cannabis. You can just take it and shove it, and we're going to take back this country and do it right. And that's how we're going to get our culture back, because they destroyed our culture. But, I did say the one thing I want to be positive here, that culture, because of that, went out all over the country. I said that on the stage too. You got Leo from Aficionado won the cup. He in Michigan. You got Melissa Moore. I could name people in every state that are everywhere. We took our culture and moved it all over the country, and it blew up. They could trim that root back, but we just went everywhere. So we're overwhelming them.
We are overwhelming them, and they're trying to legislate us into non-existence. But what a lot of times they're doing is they're legislating laws that they economically cannot enforce, right? So in the state of Oregon, we got plant counts. I don't know anyone in the last 10 years who's had someone show up to their house to count their plants. So we always advise people on this show, to know your local law enforcement and know what they care about. Because if they've got a hard on for your ass, it may not be worth it. You know what I mean? And like you said, our culture is now.
Oops, you got muted there, JR.
Our culture throughout is getting spread out through this whole nation now. And the one thing we have advantages of is home growers as well. The more people we can get turned on to growing their own, sharing with their friends, using it as a form of commerce. If you're the guy who grows great weed and your lady needs her hair done and the hairdresser burns, well, then that's a form of capital. And I think the more that we start doing stuff like that within our community, the more we can keep it away from them. I saw today that the feds announced that they're not going to talk about scheduling now until after the election cycle.
Right. I saw that. They don't want to touch it. They'd like to just reschedule and keep it illegal, but we're going to get rid of that. And I'll tell you, if farmers could just go to farmers markets like you have in every city in America, every county, and they could go there and they could trade their cannabis for vegetables or other things like you said, or the haircut, and they could just come out, you could save thousands of countless farmers just with that. Okay. They wouldn't let them do that. They ran them through. None of these farmers had any real distribution. I mean, this was such an organized destruction of farmers in our community that you could just go about it any different way. Look, they let hemp go out and run out all over the country. They knew that would destroy cannabis people. And they let it happen. They didn't care. I'm sorry, my partner, he's in Canada.
No worries. No worries.
Yeah, I don't hear from much. So sorry.
It's all good. We can wrap up soon anyways. We're on the last couple questions, I think. I enjoyed your talk during your speech that you gave at the Cup, like I was talking about earlier. I think you did mention the whole conspiracy thing and the alien thing, which that made my ears perk up because I've also been excited about the alien stuff. So I wanted to mention that. I bet you're pretty excited these days. There's been a lot of discussions about aliens, at the government level, people testifying in front of Congress. Are you following all that stuff?
I've been a UFO researcher since 1972. I could do a 2-hour lecture that would match anybody in the world as a layman for what's happened. They just had 60 orbs over LA. If you want, in about 2 minutes, I'll give you the 2-minute short version of what's reality. What reality is that if you go back and research, William Tompkins was the head of the spy program for World War II. This is a fact. He was coming back with intel saying that the Nazis were working with psychics and ETs to build spacecraft. We know all about it because we had Area 51, Roswell, and MJ-12. We know all about it. The Nazis were told about underground bases in Antarctica. That's why we all heard about the Nazis in South America. They moved down there before the war. Admiral Byrd went down, this is a fact, with the largest naval expedition in history after World War II. He went down to root them out. It was in the middle of winter. He got his ass blown up by those ships. Then they have a famous picture over the White House of UFO ships. And that was Nazi crafts. They checkmated Dwight. He didn't want to do the deal, but the Bushes, the CIA, and the rest of the people, Boeing and all of them did. So you had the Nazis join up with our military industrial complex. What happens? A few years later, Dwight Eisenhower isn't even allowed into Area 51. So what's he do? He does a famous speech that most of you guys don't remember probably. Beware of the military industrial complex, because he realized he wasn't allowed in and it was out of control. He told Kennedy, they killed his brother. That was the end of the free world. We have not lived in a free world since then. There's no democracy. We've lived in a slave world since that time. They took over the world. Now let's go back really quickly. The reason why we haven't thrived, the reason why they've gone after cannabis, the reason why we went from zero debt to 40 trillion, the reason why an electrician could have 3 kids and a wife and no credit cards in 1970, but now there's 2 people working and can't pay their bills. The reason why 1 out of 2 are autistic. We've gone from 1 out of 200 for diabetes to 1 out of 2. The reason why we're collapsing as a society was because they were going to enslave us as indentured servants when they created the IRS, the Federal Reserve, and the Great Depression. They were just going to take the monetaries and enslave us, but keep us. When they got the UFO thing, they realized they didn't need us. So what happened since 1960 is they've methodically prepared to get rid of all of us, 90% of us, so they could just take the world and be okay. They no longer needed us. So what you're seeing and what doesn't make sense to everybody is why we're not thriving is because of that. You can go research it. I can go from 100 different ways. I can tell you every bit of it, how it went and where it went and who did it. But that's the nutshell. And so we basically have done that. Now what's happened is a giant force of people came together. That runaway military industrial complex took over 52 planets in space. And what happened was a giant galactic federation had to come together to take it out. They took it out. So all these people that run the world are no longer connected to their ET friends. That's why it's all collapsing right now. You're watching all of it collapse because they don't have it. In a nutshell, the people that predicted all this are predicting in the next year, you're going to get free energy. You're going to get med beds, the stem cells to heal everybody. They're going to retire all the dead of the world. They're going to have military tribunals for all these people. The heads of the DOA, CIA, FBI, most of the media companies, most of the politicians are all going to be arrested. And we're going to have a giant military tribunal. And after that, the ETs are going to land and come out. And that's why last week you saw 60 orbs over LA. It's coming very quickly.
I'm telling you, and I keep trying to tell people this, that this is going to be happening, and it's going to be happening very fast. All of these AI integrated machines and all of this machine learning is going to change every aspect of how we live our lives. And people just don't see it coming. And there's that thing called Moore's Law, where technology does this and then it shoots straight up. Yep. Well, I can tell you that I think, and this is my opinion, is that all of this that we've been receiving throughout our mind control, I guess you would call it, through the media, TV, radio, every aspect of our society, they, I think, had some kind of communications that said, listen, if we do this right now, everyone's going to freak the fuck out and it's not going to work. So we're going to roll this out over like a 30, 40-year time span, and this is how shit's going to break down.
No, they did a masterful job, and I've tracked every bit of it, and it is something that people are just the curve for the technology already went up. It went up in the 60s and 70s. They didn't give it to us. We never got stem cells or med beds or any of the stuff that could heal us. We never got the free energy. They kept all the free energy. That's all going to go away. They were going to wipe us out. We're going to get all that and more. And, you know, it really took everybody coming together to really see this. And, you know, I'll remind people, if you go back and study Edgar Cayce, one of the greatest psychics of all time, one of the greatest healers of all time, he predicted 120 years ago that Russia, the Great Bear, would be the savior of the world. Okay. So people better go back and really start studying what's been predicted and what's going on, because it's not what most people think. Russia and China and the Asian royal societies and mobs have gotten together with the good part of our military and taken on that military industrial complex. And basically what you've had for the last, well, basically since 9/11, you've had a third world war. And that's basically what's going to be cleaned up right now. And we're going to live peacefully. Do you know that they've already found one asteroid that would take care of all of our needs for 100 years? This place could just be a park. Nobody could do it. Everybody could just work. What we're going to have is everybody's going to be activated for their passion. And you're going to work about 4 hours a day for society. And the rest of your time is going to be nurturing music or arts or technology, science, you know, whatever it's your jam, farming.
I want to speak on that a little bit, Tim, because I was listening to this gentleman. I think he lived in Thailand, right? And he lived in a very remote region of Thailand. And in their lifetime and in the culture of their tribe, basically what happens is when rice season happens, you start, I think it was in June or July, you work your ass off until everything is harvested. Once everything is harvested in the rice fields, the rest of the year is building your community, building your art, building your passions, building the things that make a community great, rich, and full. And so I think that all this AI integrated machines, all that is going to turn it to where we as a human, the ones that survive their onslaught of our killing, will be able to maybe start doing things to repair, to bring back our cultures, to bring back our societies, our environmental damages that we've done, getting all the plastics out of our oceans, all of that stuff, we will be able to focus 100-fold on, instead of sitting at some job shifting around some bullshit that doesn't mean nothing and really creates no value for anyone.
Look, we could just have everybody do the robotics and we're free, and we can go back and we could have everybody healing the earth. We could all be people planting trees and cleaning up the garbage and doing the great things that you're talking about. And the average child at 4 years old now has 285 chemicals detectable in their blood.
Yeah.
The people that decided to get rid of all of us created the plastics rather than going to hemp and cannabis and all the stuff that we had and cotton. And they created all this knowing that the kid was going to have 285 chemicals inside of them.
Yeah.
They've done the toxify the shit out of us, and they're going to all go down for that. And we're going to live happily ever after. And that's what we are going to do. We're going to have the greatest rebound in history.
Yeah. You know what? I think also the other kind of deceptive plot is we've had these addictive executives for the tobacco industry move into our food industry, and they've created, I mean, you look at BlackRock and Kroger Corporation, the way they own the food that you choose from when you go to a grocery store. All of those items are designed to poison you and make you reliant on a medical system that is not going to be there to do nothing but drain you of your money. And so I think all these cycles of poison and all of this shit that's going down, you know what? I would rather have to go down to the river and eat fucking minnows and goddamn carp every day than continue to go to the grocery store and poison my family. I'm really kind of over it.
Well, did you see what Trump did with Robert Kennedy? He's putting Kennedy in charge of a commission to get to the bottom of what's wrong with our food. Okay, because Kennedy's been talking about this with the Children's Defense Fund for 30 years. And they're going to basically arrest all those people. They're going to arrest them for murder. Basically, they knew it. They knew it knowingly. And we're going to, you know what? This is going to be, I've been waiting for this. I never thought I'd live to see it. But now that they've told me everything, the people I got with 8 years ago told me everything. They told me that Trump was going to be put in before he was even elected. And I was like, you're out of your minds. They told me pedophilia would be the biggest thing in the world. I was like, I grew up Catholic. I understand. What is it? They told me so much stuff, and it's all come true. These same people are telling us in the next year, we're going to see all the technology they kept from us turn us into a super race. And we're going to all be able to live happily ever after and not work in a factory all day long and be able to be with our families. Look what they did. They split up our families. They took us from single families to two families to broken families to, they just, everything they did, it was so masterful to destroy us.
Yeah.
And they almost took away.
And so not only did they do that, but they set up to destroy our families by poisoning our societies with an endless supply of the kind of what I feel like chemicals that will enslave you and destroy your life, destroy your family, destroy your livelihood. I think all of that is designed. I don't think the crack epidemic in LA and stuff like that, I don't think that was by accident. That was all by design. And now I think, and this is my opinion, is that there has to be a massive distribution network for every town and every city in America to have an endless supply of fentanyl and meth. That is not something that just comes over the border in a backpack or a car. That is a very well-designed and orchestrated distribution network. And I find it hard to believe that the people who are engineering our society are just like, wow, how's this happening? Wow, this is oblivious. We better do something about it. I find that hard to believe.
Well, we're going to
really quick.
Sorry, go ahead. I'm trying to reel you guys in, but you keep going. Okay. Tim, I'll give you the last word and then we'll wrap it up.
I sat down. I worked for all the major teams that ran all the tie across California back east in the 70s and 80s. I was one of the youngest people doing it. And I had one of the elders come to me in 1985, and he showed me the first indoor. And he said, we're all going to be growing under lights in 2 years because they're going to take all the loads out and they're going to wipe everybody out. And I was like, you're out of your mind. He wanted a third of the crop and for 6 rounds to get that cut. And I told him he's out of his mind. I bought the pot, and he said, cocaine's going to go from 100 a gram to $10 a gram on the streets. And I said, you're crazy. 2 years later, I had to go back and beg for that cut. They took out 12 big loads. They took out everything. They changed the minimum mandatory prison sentences. Biden built the private prison systems, and he made crack cocaine that was $10 on the streets. And then he went on television, Biden did, and showed you that little bit of crack and said, if you have this much crack, I'll put you in prison for 10 years, as they were bringing it in. This was a concentrated thing. It was all done. I'm telling you, it's going to be they're going to write books about this for the next 100 years, how they almost exterminated the Earth's population, the people of the Earth. I mean, it's wild what they did. and it's coming. I'm glad that you're so, you know what? People like you now are obviously getting so awake and aware of what's going on. Back in the day, I couldn't even talk about this. People thought I was crazy. My ex-wife thought I was crazy. Now people are coming at me everywhere and they're going, how did you know all this stuff? It's like wild.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to kind of end on this. The psilocybin in the mushroom and the LSD is going to center you in love. And the cannabis daily is going to keep you centered. And if you kind of navigate those paths, you're going to be able to navigate all this fuckery that we're all going to see within the next 5 to 10 years. Because we have to deconstruct. Amen. We have to deconstruct all of that bullshit that we've been programmed over these last 50 years. And then we've got to start living and learning how to love each other in a new way.
Amen. You just said it as good as you can. I'll tell you what, the mushrooms and the psychedelics are a big part of that. So is cannabis, so is clean food and just culture. And all we have to do is get that and get all that crap out of our way and we'll heal ourselves. But it's going to be a big process because people have been mind controlled at levels that they don't even understand.
It's so deep entrenched. It's so deeply entrenched.
Yeah, I know. I see every day.
So good. Sorry. Thanks for taking us on this journey or indulging us a little bit. I brought it up because obviously David Grush testified in front of Congress last summer, which was kind of mind blowing to see him talking about the stuff that he's seen. And then Lou Elizondo, he just wrote a book that came out, Eminent. And then Lou was on Joe Rogan on like Monday, and that episode already has like 1 million+ viewers. And he's talking about remote viewing. He's talking about green orbs visiting his house and his wife. He's talking about all kinds of stuff. So, and my wife was just talking to me about this the other day. She's like, do you believe this stuff or what? And I was like, I don't know, man. I used to think it was crazy, but now like, I don't know what to not believe. You know what I mean? So things are rapidly changing. And I think a lot of these things that we thought were crazy science fiction are actually turns out to be real. So very interesting times for sure. And I really appreciate the conversations that we've had with you today, Tim.
Well, thank you. You know what? We're going to go through, like we talked about, we're going to go through a technology curve that's straight up. We're going to go through like 0 to light speed in 1 year. And the new Earth is going to be here. And your wife, you and all of it better get ready because it's not going to go away. And they told us they were going to start coming out. They just had, you see the 60 orbs outside of LA. I mean, everybody saw it. You're going to see that monthly. They're going to be doing this, preparing us. And I could go on for hours about Elon Musk, about what's going on, because that's all I do is study this stuff. So there's so many pieces to it and how it goes, but you're on it, you've got it, and everybody's just going to watch it just happen. And it's going to be the greatest story in the history of mankind since we were created.
Well, let's make it happen. Well, thank you so much, JR, for helping make this happen, putting together this interview. Tim, thank you so much to you for taking the time out of your day. We really do appreciate it. I know you're a busy dude and a lot of people hit you up, I'm sure, for conversations. So thank you. And then once again, thanks to the Emerald Cup for showing the kindness that they did to us. You guys gave us a really great spot at the Cup. We had a blast, and it was a really awesome opportunity for us to connect with the community at your show, connect with our community as well. It was really cool. We had people that watch our show that showed up and introduced themselves. And so, yeah, just thank you to the Emerald Cup, and thank you to the whole Emerald Cup family. That includes your family, Tim, that works on the show, your daughter that puts so much time and effort into the show, the kind of extended family like Nikki and Swami. You mentioned some of our friends, Johnny Casali. We ran into Johnny and he gave us both a big hug, which is really cool. I just shout outs to everyone that's a part of this scene. We really do appreciate that we can be a part of it as well.
You know what? Just like our legacy is your legacy is ours with the Bay Area. The same thing with this movement. There's people like us that are the outlaws up here doing it all. If it wasn't for Christina Onestad, if it wasn't for Rolling Stone, if it wasn't for National Geographic, if it wasn't for you guys, and none of you guys are making a lot of money because I know nobody does. If it wasn't for you guys doing the work with the passion to go educate people and inspire them, we wouldn't be making this happen. So you guys are equally as critical to the success of this whole movement as anyone. And so thank you guys for doing the work.
Thanks, awesome. Tim. I appreciate it. And I want to just say one last thing that me and Q started Cannabis at Emerald Cup. our relationship started at Emerald Cup. And so I think, what is it, 5 years that we've been grinding and never taking a paycheck once, serving our community to the best of our ability. It all came from the Emerald Cup.
Well, look at what you guys are doing. I know that you guys aren't making money because I know all the people doing this. And that's why I go out of my way to support you guys, do everything I can for you. And I kick you as much butt as I can because you guys are doing righteous work. And it's really needed because we can't use the fake media. We got to have real media coming and bringing people the truth.
Right. Word.
You know,
Awesome. Well, Tim, we hope you have a great rest of your day. We really had a great afternoon with you today. JR, thanks as well. And as always, everyone,
growers love.
Peace.
Growers love. Peace. Take care.
Thanks, man. Have a great day. Oh, there he goes.
Oh, man. That was awesome, man.